Hello, everyone. I am going live today to talk about how sugar impacts eczema. How can you decrease flare-ups with smarter sugar choices? And this is such a big topic because, as we all know, we are eating too much sugar in general in today's world in our standard American diet, or what we as naturopathic doctors like to call the SAD diet, SAD, or standard American diet. And unfortunately, our standard American diet is filled with sugar. So, we really want to talk about this today because it is very important for someone who has eczema. Our agenda for the next 15 minutes, we are going to talk about sugar and eczema. We're going to talk about sugar in your diet. How can you modulate that and improve that in your diet? How can you test for blood sugar dysregulation as well? We are going to go live for the last 15 minutes and talk about your questions. I'm going to answer all of your questions about this important topic because, yes, we are eating way too much sugar and it is affecting our skin. Okay. So, what is sugar and why is it so important? Well, we need sugar. Okay, this is something that we actually do need. So it's not about sugar being the bad guy. Glucose or sugar is vital for brain function. Our brain uses around 20% of our body's total energy, and most of that comes from glucose or sugar. So it is important that we eat sugar in order for our brains to function. It is also so important for our muscles. If we are doing things like physical activity, and I mean just getting through our day, we do need sugar. And if you are someone who runs marathons or bikes or does intense exercise, you know that you need glucose, okay? So glucose is stored in your muscles as glycogen, and when we need it, it's turned into energy. And then cellular metabolism. So, glucose is important for cellular respiration. And this is a process that produces energy in our cells. Okay. So, glucose or sugar by itself is not a bad guy. But unfortunately, we are choosing bad forms of sugar. And we are also eating too much added sugars. So we're not necessarily talking about natural sugars, although those can also, if we do too much of that, any too much of anything is not really great for us. But too much sugar is really not great for someone with eczema and for anyone in general. But we're talking about eczema today. So it can lead to something called insulin resistance. And this is where you have something called insulin, and this allows the sugars to get into our cells so that we can have energy. Okay, but this is where the cells are no longer appropriately responding to the insulin. And there was a study published in Liver International that found that adult patients with atopic dermatitis, or the most common form of eczema, have a higher risk of developing type 2 diabetes, which is linked to insulin resistance. And so, what does insulin resistance look like? Well, we can look at this picture here. So, first of all, a high carb diet, low exercise, high stress really causes there to be more sugar or glucose in the blood. This causes us to have this high insulin demand, and then over time, these insulin receptors become resistant, unfortunately. And then we start to have these starving cells because our cells are not getting the glucose or the energy they need. And so the body does things like create more, bring out more glucose, causes us to be more and more and more hungry, and increases our insulin more and more and more. And this really leads to a lot of health problems, one of which is diabetes type 2. And type 2 diabetes is more really related to lifestyle and diet choices. Type 1 diabetes may not be related to that as much, but type 2 diabetes is often related to more of a metabolic dysfunction and more related to, what are we doing in our life, our nutrition, our lifestyle to potentially cause insulin resistance. Okay. Now, what happens when this happens is that we will have more inflammation in the body, sugar itself, and having high blood sugar levels is related to having increased inflammatory markers, including cytokines, which actually increase and regulate inflammation in the body. And a lot of those cytokines are actually what we target when we are doing things like Dupixent and other eczema medications. They're actually targeting those cytokines to lower those cytokines and lower that inflammation. So, this is why sugar can be so important. Sugar is actually triggering those cytokines. So, rather than silencing those cytokines with the medications, we can actually stop that by lowering our sugar intake. A systematic review and meta analysis published in Nutrients found that higher dietary sugar intake, particularly from things like added sugar, so not necessarily the natural sugars like in fruits and vegetables, but those added sugars, was significantly associated with an increased level of inflammatory biomarkers like CRP and other cytokines, again, which are related to the inflammation in eczema. And so chronic inflammation is really a combination of a lot of different things, but insulin resistance and blood sugar regulation is one of those that really contributes to that chronic inflammation. And when we think about eczema, we really do want to think about, eczema being a problem of chronic inflammation. Okay, so this is really an important thing to think about. Now, kind of moving on from blood sugar, we want to move into gut health. And sugar can absolutely disrupt the balance of the bacteria in the gut, leading to an overgrowth of bacteria and yeast. And those bugs love this sugar, okay? Love added sugars. And oftentimes, when we're eating things like fruit, we aren't just eating the straight sugars. What we are doing is we are actually eating sugar with fiber. And so that actually balances things out. And we'll talk about that in a moment. But when we're eating just sugar, like if we're eating candy or if we're eating an ice cream that basically just has sugar in it, this can be really important because there's not as much fiber that's kind of balancing that out for us. Okay. So there was a study published in the Frontiers in Microbiology, which was really interesting. It showed that high sugar intake alters the gut microbiome. And this study actually talked about how we need to be really promoting beneficial fibers, prebiotic fibers. Those are those really good, fibers like oats and brown rice and things like that, as opposed to eating very high sugar, low fiber carbs. Okay. And this sugar, again, feeds the dysbiosis. And we're basically made up of trillions of microbes in our body. And so there's a choice. We either feed those microbes with sugar, or we feed the more beneficial bacteria. So there is something that happens when you eat sugar, it's actually feeding all the microbes. But when you feed fiber, you're actually selectively feeding the beneficial bacteria. So that is the difference between eating, let's say, a piece of candy and then let's say like an oatmeal, a bowl of oatmeal. Okay, so there is a difference there, although those are both carbohydrates. All right. And then, of course, as we mostly all of us know, a high sugar diet will lead to obesity and weight gain. And we have seen that obesity and weight gain does lead to inflammation, and it actually by itself can actually lead to things like eczema as well too. And unfortunately, this is a problem in our pediatric population because our standard American diet, again, that sad diet, is so circled around things like sugar and white carbs and things like that. So we really need to start to change that. Okay. So, what is the right amount of sugar and the right types of sugar to consume to support eczema healing? Well, first of all, the American Heart Association says we shouldn't have no more than 25 grams or 6 teaspoons of added sugar per day, no more than 36 grams or 9 teaspoons of added sugar per day for men. And this is actually still a lot for me as a naturopathic doctor. But if you actually think about how much sugar you might be consuming on a daily basis, you may be consuming a lot more than this. And we're talking more about added sugar here, not natural sugars. But even though this is the recommendation for the American Heart Association, this more has to do with like, how do you really prevent things like heart disease? this is what you want to focus on. But for eczema flare ups, I would really recommend eliminating all sugars if you are having any eczema flare ups at this time. If you have eczema at this time, I would recommend just zero added sugar. Okay, so that doesn't mean fruits and vegetables, the sugars coming from those fruits and vegetables, but I'm talking added sugars like, candies and things that have refined sugar in them. Okay. So our clean food plate, half of your plate, we want to see those non-starchy carbs, those vegetables. We want to see protein. We want to see good fat. We want to see good, healthy, fibrous carbs on there. And balancing these is really important for balancing the blood sugar. And then eating these in the right order can also be important. So we'll go into that. So fiber, when you eat fiber along with sugar, it actually slows down the digestion and slows down that absorption of sugar into your body. So you won't have these spikes of blood sugar. So pairing fruit, which contains naturally occurring sugars, with high fiber food like chia seeds or nuts can be helpful. Although fruit itself usually has fibers in it as well. So there's kind of built in fibers there, which is nice. So, for example, if you're having like a banana or something, there's a lot of fiber in there. So, there's built in fiber. You can also add more fiber when you're eating those sugars. Protein also slows down the digestion of carbohydrates and sugars as well. So make sure that you're really having protein rich foods, and you can eat a piece of fruit along with a protein source like a nut or seed that can also stabilize the blood sugar as well. Healthy fats, like those found in avocados, nuts, and seeds, and olive oil, also slow down the digestion. So, really, I think the idea here is, let's balance all those micronutrients so that we're not only eating sugar by itself, is kind of how I want you to think of it. So, again, you can add avocado oil or olive oil to a meal. That can actually help balance the blood sugar as well too. Okay, so just thinking about that clean food plate, if you basically get all of the items on the clean food plate, you will actually be eating a very well balanced meal in terms of your macronutrients, in terms of your micronutrients, and in terms of regulating the blood sugar. Now, there was a study that was published in Diabetes Care that actually found that the order in which you eat your macronutrients can also matter as well too. So you want to start with fiber and vegetables. This helps slow down the digestive process and allows a buffer for that sugar absorption. Okay, it creates a little bit of a protective barrier in the gut and allows the sugar from the carbohydrates to enter the bloodstream more slowly. Then next, so first eat your vegetables. So if you're doing a clean food plate, you're going to have half your plate in vegetables. You want to eat that part first. Next, you want to eat your protein and your healthy fats. So these will again slow down that digestive process. And then last, you want to eat the carbohydrates or the sugar. So if you're eating things like rice or bread or starchy, those starchy carbs, you want to eat those last. And so, as we know, in the standard American diet, we are eating these all at the same time. And that can often have issues with that blood sugar, because then if you're getting those sugars or those carbs first, we notice a bigger spike in that blood sugar, as opposed to, again, eating in this order: your vegetables, then your proteins, then your carbs or your sugars. And that study really showed it's not just what you eat, but how you eat it and the order in which you eat it that could be really, really important. Okay. So this is really, really great information. I hope you guys take this and use this information. I did write a blog about it. I see that people are commenting if I'm going to be releasing this slideshow. All of this information is in the blog that I just wrote. So you can go to the links in my bio and click blog. Or when I repost this today, I will, you can just DM me and I'll send the links right to you. This live replay, which I'm going to have a replay for, and then also the blog as well too. Okay. But yes, all of these changes, and these are very simple changes that you can start implementing, they can make a huge difference in your blood sugar. Okay. So here's a practical example for a sugar conscious meal. So maybe you eat a coconut yogurt with some blueberries, which both of those do have sugar in them. And then you sprinkle some chia seeds on top. Chia seeds are high in fiber, they're high in protein. And so that's a way to kind of balance that blood sugar when you're eating that, okay? For lunch, you might have a mixed salad with leafy greens, a grated carrot, an avocado, grilled chicken. So you're having, and then an apple on the side, okay? And that apple is going to have some sugar in there, but it's also going to have some fiber. But then you have your protein in your chicken, your good fats in your avocado, okay? And then let's say you want to have a banana. There's some good fiber in there. So by itself, it's actually not a bad snack. But if you actually balance that with almonds, you're now getting some protein in there. You're further balancing that blood sugar. So this is really great. And if it's something that you can just kind of think about whenever you're eating your meals, this is going to make a huge difference. Okay. All right. So now your question might be, how do I test for blood sugar dysregulation? Do I have any blood sugar issues? Am I pre diabetic? Do I have diabetes? And this can run in the family. So if you have people who have pre diabetes or even heart disease in the family, you definitely want to start checking into this. Hopefully, your doctor is running some labs every single year. Once my patients get better, I like to see them at least once a year to run a whole plethora of labs, but blood sugar is one of them because it is something that can get away from us, and we can just start to lose track of our exercise and our diet, and then our blood sugar levels can really go awry. And this is one of the most important things to think about, not just for eczema, but in general for the population. So, first off, your doctor probably should, if you are doing yearly labs with your doctor is probably running a fasting blood glucose test. This measures what your glucose levels look like when you're fasting. And we have some reference ranges here, and so, this is something you want to check on with your doc. And the hemoglobin A1C test is also one that your doctor might check. These are very common. These first two are very common. And the hemoglobin A1C actually reflects your blood sugar over the last 2 to 3 months. And so this is something that will show us kind of just like an average of what your blood sugar looks like over the last 3 months. So these are great kind of first line tests to just, do a screen every year and check how things are going. When you're pregnant, we often do an oral glucose tolerance test, or if we want to know if the body is actually responding to sugar as well, we might do an oral glucose tolerance test. The drink that they usually give you is not great. It's not the cleanest drink. So there are cleaner options. So if you do have to do an oral glucose tolerance test, definitely look around and just search non toxic oral glucose tolerance test drink. And there are less toxic drinks out there. So this is something that you can also do. And it's often done during pregnancy. Continuous glucose monitoring is actually something that has become more widely available to the general public. And actually, this week, I'm going to be testing out a system for you guys. So, watch if you are on Instagram, if you follow me on Instagram, make sure to follow me at drfong.nd. I will be actually putting on my continuous glucose monitor today. I'll video that and I'll just kind of video my entire week in terms of what I'm learning from wearing that continuous glucose monitor. Our blood sugar can change with our stress, with our food intake, with our exercise. There's so many reasons our blood sugar changes. It is interesting to see those changes throughout the day and to see how my food, my exercise, my mental health is actually impacting my blood sugar. So I bought a system and I'm going to do it for 2 weeks. I'm going to test it out and I will be just putting my updates on my stories and posting them on my Instagram. So if you want to come with me on that journey, check it out. All right. Now, there are two values that we can look at for insulin resistance. So, the HOMA IR is actually a calculated value that takes into account the fasting glucose and the fasting insulin. So, I do like this one to show me whether there might be insulin resistance going on. And then, of course, that's associated with the fasting insulin. Both of these are not tests that are normally done with your conventional doctor unless they're maybe looking for insulin resistance, although I haven't really seen it widely done with your conventional doc. So if you're kind of thinking, I wonder if I'm having insulin resistance, then you may want to look into these tests as well too. Okay. All right. So, what are we talking about today? We're talking about how sugar impacts eczema, how to reduce flare ups with smart sugar choices. And really, this is part of getting lasting eczema relief. We're really trying to understand the root causes. And this is another root cause to think about. And this is largely having to do with lifestyle and diet. So when we think about why blood sugar is going to be off, often it's really lifestyle and diet. So if you guys take my eczema root cause assessment, you'll see that this is not one of the main root causes, but what are two of the main root causes are nutrition and lifestyle, because often when we have blood sugar issues, again, this is where we find those issues. Okay. All right, now I know you guys have been inputting comments here, so it's time for questions now. I will go back and look at those questions. Please go ahead now and type out any and all questions you have about this topic: how sugar impacts eczema, how to reduce flare ups with smart sugar choices. And I'm happy to answer any and all questions. I do want to remind you that this information is for educational purposes only. This is not medical advice. If you are interested in getting medical advice, definitely think about booking a consultation with me. I will actually evaluate you one on one, and then we can kind of figure out if blood sugar is an issue for you. Please start typing some questions out. And I just want to let you guys know some of the free resources as I'm waiting for you guys to do that. We do have a free eczema root cause assessment. It is a 3-minute assessment. It breaks down your potential root causes and what you might need to look into in order to truly heal your eczema. I also have an eczema relief workshop. The link, both of these, the link is in my bio, or just DM me and I'm happy to send you these links individually. Okay. If you are interested in meeting me, you can also book a one-on-one consultation with me. You can get 30% off by using the code IGDC30. We do have a 100% money back guarantee on that consultation too. So if you don't get what you need from that consultation, then definitely just ask for your money back. All right. Okay, great. So let me go through and look at the questions that we have here. So let's see here. Let me go back here. Where are you located? So I do we do most of our treatments virtually. And so no matter where you're located, we pretty much can usually support you. In certain states, unfortunately, we cannot support you, but in most states we can. So definitely you can check that out on our website or DM me and let me know where you're located and I can help to understand if I can help you. And yes, so for the person who asked if I could send out this slideshow, all of this information is in my blog. So just go to my blog. The link is in my bio, or just message me. I'm happy to just send you the direct link to the blog. Okay. What do you recommend for daily amount of added sugar for kids? Okay. I recommend if you're listening to this live, you likely either your kid has eczema or you have eczema. I recommend zero. Okay, so like right now, if you have eczema or if you have flares, I recommend zero added sugars and only doing natural sugars. So natural sugars are in a different category, okay? But added sugars, like if you're doing things like bars or anything like that, those do have added sugars often. And I do recommend, first of all, really lowering the processed foods and really sticking to natural foods. So then, of course, those fruits are going to be fine. But then thinking about balancing those fruits, if you are eating those, with proteins and fats and things like that, as we talked about in today's life. Okay. All right. And so, what other questions do you guys have? Please go ahead and type into the chat. Again, I'm happy to answer any and all questions. Again, we are talking about how sugar impacts eczema, how to reduce flare ups with smart sugar choices. I will be posting this on my Instagram. So, if you guys want to watch this again, you can go ahead and watch it. You guys can reach out to me, DM me if you have any questions and you'd rather ask those one on one personally. And then also, I did write a blog about this topic. So definitely check out the link in my bio, click blog, or just message me and I'm happy to send you the direct link. Okay. All right. I don't see any other questions coming in. So thank you so much for joining me today. If you do have any lingering questions about how sugar impacts eczema, how to reduce flare ups with smart sugar choices, please type them into the chat box now. I'm happy to answer any of those questions. Otherwise, feel free to DM me. Again, I'm happy to answer you directly as well too. Okay. I hope this information was helpful today. Thank you for going live with the